Hello everyone, welcome back to the step-by-step Fiori app development series by Intellect Consulting. In the previous video, we learned how to navigate between multiple views in a SAP Fiori freestyle app and how to pass data between those views using routing. In today's session, we are going to take the next important step and learn how to bind real backend data from an OData service into a SAP Fiori application. Specifically, we will see how to connect an OData service, configure it in the project, and then bind that data into a list control. After that, we will implement navigation from a list view to a detailed view and display detailed information for a selected record. This is a very common requirement in real-world Fiori applications because most enterprise apps work with OData services coming from backend systems. And now let's open VS Code, and just a quick note, if you are new to this series and haven't watched our earlier videos, I highly recommend checking them out first. We've already covered the environment setup and some important basics that we'll be using today. Alright, with that done, let's get started. First, press Ctrl-Shift-P keys together and type Fiori. From the results, you can select Open Application Generator. Now we have to select a template. I will go with Basic. After selecting the basic freestyle template, we come to the data source step. For this demo, I am going to use the Northwind OData v3 service. This is a publicly available sample OData service provided mainly for learning and testing purposes. And I will go to the Chrome and search for Northwind v3. We can go to the first link here. And as you can see, it already contains sample data like products, categories, orders, order details, so which make it perfect for our tutorial. I will copy this link, and here instead of none I will select connect to an OData service, and I'll provide the Northwind OData v3 service URL as the data source, and we can click next. For this we need to give the view name, so I will just click next. Now we need to fill these fields. These are the project attributes. For the module name, I will give Fiori tutorial 04. And we can give the application title tutorial 04 and the namespace, and click finish. So it's installing the dependencies. We'll have to wait some time. Here is the basic structure of our application, and before we start writing any code, let's first understand the basic structure of this SAP Fiori freestyle application. If you look at the project, you can see a few important folders and files like view controller model folders. You can see the component file and the manifest.json file. If we go to the view folder, it contains all the XML files that define how our UI looks. And if we go to the controller folder, for every view there's a corresponding controller. The controller contains the JavaScript logic for that view. So whenever a user clicks a button, select a list item, or navigates between two screens, all that logic is written inside the controller. Then we have the model folder. The model folder is used to manage application data. This is the most important file in the application, and here we are defining the OData service that our application will consume. The URI points to the Northwind OData service. This has automatically came here because we have defined this when we created this project. And the component file, it is the entry point of the application. This is the first file that UFI loads when the app starts. Now let's move to view 1, and this first view will act as our master screen where we display a list of orders. And inside the page content I can create the list control, and before that I will just run npm start and We can see how this looks like. So you can see there are no elements still there. Inside the page content, I am adding a list control for the items aggregation, and I need to bind these to orders. Before binding anything in the UI, let's quickly understand the data we are working with. If I open the Northwind service in the browser and go to the orders entity set, you can see a list of orders coming from the backend. Each order has properties like order ID, customer ID, order date, ship date, and shipping details. This is exactly the data we want to show in our Fiori application. Now let's move back to our view. This first view will act as our master screen where we display a list of orders. Inside the page content, I am adding a list control for the items aggregation and I bind it to orders. What this means is UI5 will automatically call the orders entity set from the OData service, fetch all records, and create one list item for each order. Inside the list, I'm using an object list item. Object list item is a standard SAP control designed for business data, and order is a business object, so this control fits perfectly. For the title, I bind the order ID. So I will give it as order, and then I can bind the order ID. So each row will display the order number dynamically. Yeah, it's order ID. Next, I set the type as navigation. This visually tells the user that this list item is clickable and leads to another screen. Then I add the press on order press. This is very important. Here I'm not writing any logic, I'm just telling the view when the user clicks this item, call a function named on order press in the controller. This is how UI and logic stay separated in MVC. Now inside the object list item, I add attributes. Here I display the order date. If you look at the Northwind service, the order date is not in a readable format. It's a timestamp. So I will tell UI5 this is a date field and I want to format it as day, month and year. So I will add the code here. The path is order date. And here I will use SAP UI model type date with a format pattern. This will ensure the UI looks clean and user friendly because we can't show that timestamps to the user. I also add a small object style saying more details. This is just a visual hint to the user that clicking the item will show more information. So that is done, and we need another view to display the order details. And I will copy this existing view and rename it as view 2, and the controller also I will copy the existing one and rename it. And now next we need to handle what happens when a user clicks on an order. And here we need to create this on order press function. The first thing I do is read the event object. From the event I get the source, which is the list item that was clicked. Each list item is bound to one backend record, and the UI file stores that information in something called binding context. So by calling the binding context, I get access to the exact order the user selected. From the binding context, I read the order ID. This order ID is the key we'll use to navigate to the detail screen. Now for navigation in Fiori, we never directly load views. We always use the router, which comes from the component. Routing is important because it updates the URL, it supports deep linking, and it keeps application state consistent. So before navigation works, we define routes in the manifest.json file. And if we go to the manifest file, here we have only one route here. I will copy this and rename it as route view 2. And for the first one, we don't need a pattern, so I will remove that. And for the second route, I will give the pattern as order slash order ID. So this will accept an order ID parameter. And we need to copy this target as well. Target simply map these routes to the actual view. Now that the routing is ready, I go back to the controller and I can give the navigation part. So here it will navigate to the route view 2 and pass the selected order ID. At this point, the order ID is no longer stored in a variable, it travels through the URL. Now we can save this and see how it looks like. Yeah, we can see the order number is there and the order date is there and the more details is there. We can click on this and yeah, it is going to the next page. So it's working correctly now. We can go to the VS Code and continue our work. Next, let's move to view 2. This is our detail screen. Here I use an object header to display high level order information. The entire header is bound to selected order, so fields like customer ID, order date, shipment date, and shipping details coming directly from the backend. So for the ID, I will give it as order header, and for the title, order ID, and I will use the order ID and bind it here, and I will give the class as this one. Then I will define the object attributes. Here we need to give the customer ID as well. So I will go to the website and we can check the ID. Yeah, so it's customer ID. I will copy this and I will copy the others as well, so I can just paste them in the code. And in here this should be customer ID, and that is fine. So what I can do is I can copy this line and I can paste it here. Then we can change the text, and I will paste what I have copied. And I will copy this line. Now I can copy, now I can now I can paste what I have copied from the website. Now let's move to the View2 controller. Here in onInit, I attach a handler to the route. This means whenever route View2 is matched, a function called onMatched will be executed. Here then I create this onMatch function. And inside the onMatch function, I will read the order ID from the URL. Then I create a key path for the order's entity using that order ID. This key represents one specific order in the backend. Now comes the most important part. Instead of binding individual controls, I bind the entire view using bind element. This means the whole view is connected to one backend record. All controls inside the view automatically receive their data. We don't need separate bindings for each field. And I also use expand order details. This tells UEFI to load the order header and the line items together in a single request. This improves performance. And now let's go back to our view, second view. And below the header, I will add a table. This table will be bound to order details, which is a navigation property of orders. And I will add order details and bind this to that order details. And in that table, I need to define the columns. Now I will go to the north end and let's check what we can use here. So we can use order ID, product ID, unit price, quantity and discount. I will copy these and I can paste them here. Now we have defined our columns. After giving the column names, I need to give the column list items. Now that part is done, we can save and we can check our application. It's loading, and if we click on an order, now you can see the header is there and the order details are also in there as a table with the fields I have defined. Now I will add a navigation button here so I can go back to the first screen from the second one. For that I will go to the second view, XML, and I will set the show now button to true, and we need to give the function name here, nav button press. I will give it as on nav, but on nav back. And let's go to the view to controller and we need to add the logic for that. I will just create the on nav back function, and I will add this, and the user will be navigate to the first view. So I will be using the route view one here. And if we go to our application now, we can see the order number is there with the order date. And if we click on one of these, we can see the order header details and also the order details in a table. And if we go to the navigation button, it will redirect us to the first view, and we have successfully used the OData service and taken data for the list view. So with that, we've come to the end of this session. In this video, we learn how to bind real backend data from an OData service into SAP FIORI application. We connected the Northwind OData service with an order in a list, navigated to a detail screen, and used element binding with expand to show complete order details. This is a very important concept because almost every real-world FIORI application works with OData services and data binding types. In the next session, we will go one step deeper into data binding in SAP UI side. We will clearly understand the different types of bindings available in SAP UI side, including property binding, element binding, aggregation binding, and exception binding, and we will see when to use which binding with practical examples. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next session.